Hi guys, and welcome to laserprints.co.uk. My name's Ryan, and in today's video we're going to walk you through how to reset the waste ink pad on a ACHI desktop printer, formerly the Epson L1800 or Procolored, as they use the same print engine. So stick around and let's get into it. So guys, here we have the ACHI, I believe you pronounce it that way, DTF Epson L1800 desktop printer. As you can see, currently the power is on and the paper and ink refill light are flashing independently of each other. Now, this is a typical sign that the motherboard of the print engine has detected an error and it cannot proceed through its initialization period due to the error that has happened. If we power down the printer and then power back on, what you will notice is that the actual carriage of the printer doesn't move at all. So as soon as you power the printer on, it clicks, you hear a very small sound, but again, the lights are flashing left to right, left to right. Now let's go over to the computer and diagnose what the error code is from the printer. So guys, we're at the desktop computer now, or laptop if that's your system that you've got. And the two programs that I'd like to show you is, one is a utility, a printer utility for the Epson print engine. And a lot of these desktop direct-to-film printers are actually converted Epson print engines. Now, the Chinese have been great at converting Epson's technology into different printing utilities and technologies for the industry, whether that be mass production or hobbyist style production, where people are using these printers to print onto t-shirts, direct to film, and then heat pressing onto fabrics. Or like I've done with mine, I've actually converted it to a UV direct to film printer, of which in a following video I will show you exactly how to convert it if you choose to. So straight over to the desktop then, and we have two programs in the middle. To get these programs, simply go to my website, which is laserprints.co.uk. We're in the UK, we're specialists in DTF and UV printer sales, parts and services. We have expert engineers that come out and service your machines if they need to. If you would like a subscription service for servicing, go to our website, check us out. But for the software, what we need, if we go to the Support and Downloads tab, within Support and Downloads, it'll open up OneDrive. You can then come into OneDrive. I'm not going to go through all of the support package softwares that are here and shared. I'm just going to go to the ones that we actually need. So the WIC printer utility for Windows, if you click on the three little dots, download that to your system, whether that's a laptop or desktop computer. Currently, this is running a x64-bit processor. So if you need 32-bit, then I would search the internet for WIC reset, and you would go directly to their website. This is not a software package that laserprints.co.uk has created. It's a free software package that is available to the masses, and we utilize it for diagnostic purposes, of which you can too. So once you've downloaded that one, go back to the support files, go to Epson, because we need what's called a Epson resetter or adjustment program, of which is Epson's core configuration program for the print engine that is inside the L1800. So the Epson 1800 zip folder, again, click on the three dots, download. Once you've downloaded the software packages, you do need to install them. So drag them to your desktop, install both, or unzip the Epson 1800. For my instance, I haven't got it unzipped already. It is a zipped folder on my desktop. So to diagnose the flashing lights on the printer, because it's not always what people say that it is in terms of you need to reset your waste ink pads. Commonly, that is the main error that happens on these DTF printers, because you're printing in a high production environment and the print engine thinks that it has a ink pad underneath the printer, of which has a life cycle of so many waste ink uptakes of ink. Now, the Chinese have been great in converting these desktop printers into a more functional, hobbyist, high-demand printer. But they also come with a lot of maintenance issues because of that, because they're not actually fundamentally designed for the process of direct-to-film, and a lot bigger commercial machinery are, but then again it comes at that significant price point for such machinery. For these printers, these desktop conversion printers, in the UK you're talking around £3,000 would get you a bundle setup to start helping in your business if you print onto fabrics or are wanting to print onto fabrics. So, but we'll cover that in another video on laserprints.co.uk. So we've got both programs installed, and the first one we want to go to is WIC Reset. And this program, as I said before, is a great free utility that can connect to the Epson print engine and read out the error codes of which are present on the printer's memory. So once the program loads up, excuse me, if you don't see your printer there to begin with, just check the connection between your computer and the printer. Simply unplug your USB cable, plug your USB cable back in, and hit the refresh detected printers list, and you should see your printer within that list. So for instance, the Epson L1800, that is the print engine motherboard of what is in the desktop printer, of which has been named ACHI from China. But also Procolored do the exact same thing. They're just rebranded. Panda do them. There's all different manufacturers. They're actually the same manufacturer in China, but they're branded as different printers, but exactly the same. So once we're in the software, we can come down to the report of our printer. Click report and we will get a detailed report of the model name, status, firmware version, the counters for the printer, any fatal errors that have happened throughout the printer's life. Now, bearing in mind, if you have more than 5, then the 5 will start to refresh with any new error that occurs within the print engine. For instance, ours, the last fatal error, or the error code number 1, was a CR load position excess load. This is very common. It's a flag that happens, but it doesn't actually mean that there is significant damage to the machine. It usually happens under and coincides with the waste ink pad counter overflow error. So as you can see, that is the main error of those two LEDs. Now you can see that this printer hasn't done a lot of work at all in terms of the counters. Now this is because I am utilizing this printer. Well, we have actually just converted that printer to a UV director film as opposed to the generic director film for garments. And there is also a video of which I'm releasing on how to exactly convert that printer to a UV ink director film. And also, as you can see behind me, we have the big Hosen 1690 refined colours, of which we will go into, or I will be going into future videos within these machines, and building my confidence up as well while I'm doing it. So yes, we've diagnosed the error code, the two flashing lights. Now, the way that those lights flash does indicate a minor issue. So you have two sets of error faults on the Epson print engine. One set is a independent flash left, right, left, right, left, right, quite slow in its flash as it's witnessed there. And the second set of, that first set is what we would call a minor instance, of which it isn't actually fatal to the running of the machine, but the print engine lags any further commitment of the initialization logic. So the logic starts, powers up, and the printer says, okay, I'm ready to work. But before it does any of that action, it reads its counters before doing so. So in essence, the counters are the first step of the logic, because it wants to know whether it has space or room within the ink pad before it can actually put more ink into the ink pad. If there's no space there, then it would overflow. Now that would be in your usual Epson print engine, due to the Epson printers having an actual sponge pad in the bottom of them. Obviously there is no tank for the waste ink to go into, so then you as the consumer, when you buy the printer, you don't have to then get your hands messy, or you're not exposed to the ink. Under DTF printing or UV printing, even banner printing, solvent printers, Roland, Mamaki, you are subject to being exposed to the inks of that printer. So precautionary, wear PPE, wear your gloves. If it's a solvent based, which isn't eco-friendly, you should be wearing the correct masks. Well ventilated areas, of which you guys should be clued up on this as well. We'll go into more detail in future videos, possibly about those subjects. So for instance, for this problem, because we don't want this video to be too long and I can rabbit, we have now identified what those flashing lights are, but the second set of those lights is actually a rapid pulse of lights. That is usually a fatal error of the print engine and is not linked to a minor error, meaning that it's not something that you can clear yourself. Usually it is a intervention from an engineer to replace parts for that printer, whether it be the print head, the carriage, the raster sensor, the raster encoder, or the motors, paper feed, or the carriage feed itself, of which I will go into further detail on the breakdown of these machines and let you guys know some tricks, tips on how to fix them. By all means, if you want to check the website out of where we have parts available for these machines, you're more than welcome to do so. So we've identified and diagnosed that the problem with this machine and the problem that I've made for this machine, because it's not an actual problem, it's one that I've put onto the machine to create this video, is the waste ink pad counter has overflowed and it has an error. So again, WIC, great utility to identify and diagnose problems with the printer. So next, a pop-up has come up for software updates. By all means, you can enable software update checking, of which now that wants to download something, so I'll just put it over to one side. So next, the resetter program. It would happen when I'm recording a video of the desktop that some program wants to update somewhere. So within the Epson 1800 zip folder, you have what is called Epson's utility or adjustment program. Now, Epson basically released this program to their engineers so then they can correctly configure and set up print engines of Epson-based printers. But not all of the printers are subject to this specific resetter. They all have their own. So for instance, this is still zipped on my desktop. I'm going to actually extract all to the desktop in its own folder, so that for the purposes of this video. So we have a text document about the adjustment program, but for us now, please, if you don't have administration rights on your laptop or desktop, if it's the only profile on your laptop or desktop, you should have administration rights on there. For me, I want to run as administrator, and I advise you to as well. So here we are in the Epson adjustment program, of which we have English as the language, and the port is currently auto selection. But for my purposes, I want to click on, let's just do that again. Let's click on select for the port. Under port, it has auto selection. This is if you've got multiple print engines on the same desktop or on a network. You want to then select the port of where your printer is located. For instance, mine is USB 1 L1800 series. So we click on that, and now the adjustment program knows which printer it's talking to, or which printer you want it to talk to. Now, I advise you not to go into the left-hand side of the adjustment mode, because this is for more a full setup of print engines. But you can go into the particular adjustment mode. Within here, you have a lot of options to choose from. Adjustments of all the settings of the printer, and even exporting and importing your printer's EROM data, if you will, of the processor that is on the print engine, that is on the motherboard of your printer. Now, I would advise that you copy the data. So you can back up your data, and you can restore your data from a model or file. But we won't go into that because we're not actually we're not saving that information right now. What we are interested in is under maintenance, waste ink pad counter. Within the waste ink pad counter, if you check these counters, it will read the information from the machine. As you can see, counter 2 is at 43%, counter 1 is at 100%. Now, it's always advisable to reset both counters at the same time, but bearing in mind counter 1 will always get to 100% before counter 2. And it's due to the actual ink layout of the printer and the carriage itself, mainly utilizing a lot of black due to text and black and white printing. Now, so we have checked on the left-hand side the 0 column side ink pad counter and the 80 column side ink pad counter. The 80 column side ink pad counter is actually the ink pad that runs the entire X raster length of your carriage as it's moving left to right. The counter number 1 is your ink pad that you do not see with your normal printers. So right at the bottom of the printer, behind all of the plastic shrouding, there is a white, thick, very thick white ink pad that when bought brand new, it doesn't have any ink absorbed into that pad whatsoever. But as the printer is aging and going through its life cycle, then this pad absorbs all of the waste ink that is ejected from the head under cleaning cycles, under nozzle checks. Anytime you activate a cleaning cycle on your machine, in a normal machine before it's been converted, is that ink pad will soak up the ink. Now, Epson doesn't want ink to then come out of that plastic shrouding of the machine, so they set a limit on how much ink can be absorbed by that sponge, by that pad. For us, the Chinese have done a great job in converting it, and from the priming pump and the pump that expels the waste ink from the capping station to the tank at the back of the machine, they've added a nice little pipe, if you will, that then comes to the back of the printer, excuse me, and it fills up our jar. Now, again, periodically that jar gets full, we have to then empty and consciously get rid of the ink. If you're using UV-based ink, you shouldn't be pouring that down the drain, of which we see a lot of. We shouldn't. It's not friendly to the environment, and you know, we should be looking after the environment, but I'm not going into that. That's your business's dealings. So you have to get rid of the inks, whether that's dye-based, UV-based, solvent-based. You have to get rid of them correctly from your location where you are based, the legalities of that. But for resetting the pad and its counter, simply check the 2 boxes on the left-hand side and come down to initialize. So we're going to initialize that. When the OK button is clicked, counters will be initialized. Click OK, initializing. Now the software is requesting that we please turn off the power to the printer. So I'm going to simply walk over to the printer, turn the power off. Now, as you've probably heard, if you leave these printers on standby for a while, the heating element for the DTF, it has a timeout function that is programmed in. And if you're not actually printing, there's no point the heater being on and wasting electricity. So they've actually done a good job in terms of it has a dwell timer. After such a period of time, then the heater will turn off. Now, every time you turn the print engine on and off, it sends a signal to activate that heater. And then it monitors the signals from the print engine to say, am I actually printing or am I not? If I'm not printing for such a long time, then there's no point having the heater on. So that will then go into an idle state and actually turn off the controller for the heater for the direct-to-film ink. So I've just turned the printer off, but the heater then comes on. So the logic is a little bit reversed. You'd expect it if you turn the printer off that the heater would then remain off because you're not going to be printing, so there's no point having the heater on. But if you own a Procolored printer or one of the converted Epson L1800s, you'll come across this yourself. So again, we've turned the power off. Please turn off the printer. Okay. Now, please restart the printer or reboot the printer. So I'll walk back over to the machine, turn the power back on. We've heard the first initialization click and the printer is starting up. So that first initialization click, if you will, it's actually the print engine's monitoring feature of the CR drive. So what you have is at the side of the capping station, you actually have a brake that engages into the carriage. And within the logic pattern, the first thing that that printer wants to do is check that that brake is active and on. So it tries to move the carriage up against the brake, of which then the print engine monitors the amperage or current coming through the motor to say, okay, yes, I can't move that carriage anywhere. And it backs it up with the raster encoder and the sensor itself. Once it has identified that, that's the sound that you hear before the carriage actually starts to move left and right. Then the printer goes through its normal initialization, which it checks a few components. It checks the rollers, it checks the encoders, it checks the the capping station, the brake, as we've just discussed, and a few other sensors off the top of my head. They're there. But another thing, if you have the power removed, so for instance, you've put the printer into vacation mode because you're not printing, the business is on holiday, and you've had the power removed to not only the motherboard by turning it off, but you've actually removed the power plug. Now, Epson was very smart in their logic within the transformer or the power supply to the print engine. So if the print engine hasn't had power supply for a dwell time of the print engine, it then initializes a cleaning cycle when you then power back up the printer. I advise always to leave the printers on. Now, unless you're going on vacation mode, you know, and your business is going on holiday, you're going on annual leave, and you're not going to be utilizing that printer. So yes, you want to save electricity and also wet cap the head. We'll go into all of that in later videos. But leaving the power off and then turning it back on and then have it cleaning the head all of the time, it's just going to fill up your waste ink counter, of which then you're going to have to reset and reset and reset. So that's it for this video. We've successfully reset the waste ink counter. We can click on to finish, previous, and quit. I will quickly just show you the initialization phase of the printer. So bear with me 2 seconds while I take you over there and we'll quickly go through that. So we're going to turn the power off to the printer. It will then go through its shutting down procedure, which is usually checking and double checking that the brake is engaged. Now you'll hear the fans kick in for the vacuum platen, and the heater is still on. That's the Chinese logic that didn't originally come with the print engine. So again, we're now going to turn the print engine on, which is the printer. We turn it on. Those two flashing lights, of which we saw at the start of the video, have removed. The waste ink counter has been reset. So the first thing it does is the carriage moves over as it did do before. It then checks that the brake is engaged. Once it checks that the brake has been engaged and it also checks the encoders, the print engine then sends the carriage all the way to the left and then all the way to the right. Now, as you can see, mine has been converted for UV. That's why the ink lines are black and not transparent. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully this video isn't too long. Bear with me, I am getting used to uploading videos on YouTube of where my plan is to dive deeper into these machines for your benefit, for maintenance, some servicing and procedures which will help you guys out, hopefully. So stick around, subscribe if you like to, hit the bell notification so then when I do release videos you do get notified of that, of where we will dive deeper into this machine, also its sister machine from the exact same manufacturer, which is Procolored. Also, we have the bigger machines, the UV printers, and Roland and Mamaki's, which are in the other warehouse. We'll go through all of that. So stick around. My name's Ryan. If you've got any questions, leave them in the comments and I will try my utmost to respond to them. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. Bye bye for now.